Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole for Thursday, November 28th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:31 and acknowledge that the SCRD works and plays on the traditional and unceded territories of the Squamish and the Sechelt Nation. We have an agenda before us. And I'm looking. I'm sorry. We have an amended agenda before us that was amended this morning with the addition of the Regional Water Service Area Rate Bylaw Amendment. And I would look for a motion to accept the agenda as amended. All in favor? Very good. So we have an agenda. It looks like we don't have any presentations or delegations. And I'm looking for a motion to accept the reports as they appear. I have a motion. Do I have a seconder? No, very good. All in favor? Excellent. Okay, so we're going to move on to 4.1, which is the budget project status report. And I look for staff to explain what's going on here.
Thank you, Chair. Staff are just here prepared for any questions anyone has. Thank you.
Very good. So I have a small speakers list at the moment. Director McMahon?
Yes. Okay. Most of these are just sort of notes. So page 9, line 44, the sports field strategy is out to tender. That's good news. And I hope that we will get some updates on that because there's a lot of community interest about the sports field strategy. Page 10, line 49, it appears the Cooper's Green boat ramp is sort of languishing. I was just wondering if staff had any comments on the condition. I know it's a difficult situation there.
GM Gagnon?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. So we have done a major inspection on the ramp, so we're aware of the condition of it. At this point, we want to go through the Cooper's Green Park Enhancement Community Engagement and get a better understanding about where that fits in the priority of the park. There is insufficient budget to address the condition assessment, and so we would anticipate that that would be a future budget request once the community engagement is done and we have a better understanding of the park as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks.
Follow up?
Sure, I have more if
Okay, go
nobody
ahead.
else is keen. Page 15, line 91, Chapman Lake Dam. I'm just bringing this up because I wanted to emphasize the difficulty of maintaining infrastructure that's subalpine and a fly-in location. I mean, we can make all the plans we want, but if the lake is too full, we can't get the work done. That's just the way it is. Page 16, line 109, it's exciting to count down the water meters that are getting installed. And I was just wondering if anybody could remind me of when we are hoping to get to, if not 100%, like about 98%.
Sorry? Oh, we have Remco online. Very good. GM Rosenboom.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Chair. We hope to, the remaining water meters there's still a bunch of residential to be installed, but there are also still a lot of more multi-residential to be installed, which are bigger sites, which are more complex, and we move them all towards the end. But still, we hope to have everything, all the water meters in place early next summer, so June, July 2025.
Well, thank you. That's good news. Director McMahon, you have more questions?
Of course I do. That's really good news. Thank you. On page 19, line 146, there is an item that's called bylaw enforcement action other, which seems a little mysterious, and I was just wondering what other might be.
I'm looking to staff to see who's going to take that question. Director Hall, or sorry, GM Hall.
Thank you, Chair. So from time to time, staff bring forward in-camera reports relating to bylaw enforcement matters and seeking budget approval for extraordinary costs. I'm pleased to say on this matter, which does not have a title, that progress continues to be made, and it continues to be made without cost to SCRD. So there may come a point where we have compliance achieved and this funding can be, the project can be cancelled. Thank you.
Without cost to the SCRD means without cost to our taxpayers. That's very good. I'm going to go to Director Lee. He hasn't spoken on this yet.
Thank you, Chair. Line 71, page 13, talks about the generator for North Pender. I was just wondering, is that on track for the tender to be issued, Q4?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is.
Thank you. And on the same page, but line 73, where we've been talking about a treatment plant improvement for North Pender, but I noticed that the update is additional water testing. Might this lead to the fact we don't need to upgrade the plant, or I'm just wondering the relevancy of that comment?
I wonder, GM Rosenboom, do you have a response for that?
Yes. Yes, we have. So in order for us to confirm what type of treatment plant is actually most suitable for location, we're conducting some additional testing just to make sure that what we're planning to design is actually and construct is actually suitable for the type of water that needs to be treated. So that's why some additional testing is being undertaken, and we do the testing over a little bit longer period of time. So that's why it's not a one-time testing; it's testing over a couple of months. So we actually have a better understanding of the seasonal trends as well.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to Director McMahon, and I'll come back to you, Director Lee, if you wish.
Thank you. I have just one final question, and it's at the bottom of the whole table on page 26. There's a total of all projects, which is 219, but then there's a total of open projects by year, which is 172, which is two different numbers, and I was just curious as to.
One's open projects, the other one includes the closed projects.
I
bet.
Anyway.
I'm sorry, can we get some clarity on this?
The one number, the 172, are open projects. The remainder would be the projects that we were able to complete, which is at the end of the report. So there's been significant progress made up to the end of when this report was created. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Director Lee, you have a question.
Yes, it's line 90 on page 15. It's about Chaster Well, and it appears like a pump has failed, and by reading this, it sounds to me like it might be out of service. I'm wondering if that is correct, and will it be back in service in time for the summer drought, if that's the case?
Go ahead, GM Rosenboom.
Thank you for the question, Chair. Yes, it's correct. The pump failed. We had a failure there in late August, and we assessed the damage, and we confirmed that we couldn't fix it this year anymore. So we are in need of a full rehabilitation of the pump, and we're still on track to get that in place prior to May next year.
Oh, go ahead, follow-up.
Nope, I'm good. If it is a significant contributor to our summer water, so just making sure we're okay.
Very good, thank you. I want to point out that there's 5 full pages of completed projects in this report, and I'm very grateful to staff for completing these projects, and I look forward to seeing more completed in our next report. If there are no other questions on this, I will move on to 4.2, the Regional Water Service Area Rate Bylaw Amendment. And as I look to my CAO for an update.
Thank you, Chair. So we provided a report which was published this morning, so appreciate there wasn't much time to get through it. We did highlight just the body of the report that had changed to include the information that was provided on November 21st. So there was direction back to staff to work towards providing an option that was closer to a 5%. So that is the option there. It's just a little over 5%, but staff are recommending that one. Subsequent to the recommendation of the 5.5%, we are also making some recommendations based on the discussion at budget for 3 projects to be funded through community works funds. And so we provide that option in order for us to be able to meet our financial sustainability goals of having a sufficient reserve for the service, as well as balancing the user fee and parcel tax rate. So if there are any questions, staff are here.
Thank you. I believe Director McMahon has a question on this.
Yes, I have a question and then I have a motion. My first question is, if we pay for a project, or we say that we're going to pay for a project from one of the grant funds, such as Growing Communities or Community Works, and the project for some reason doesn't go forward, does the money return to the grant fund pot, or does it go into reserves?
It goes back to the original source of funding, which would be whichever source that was.
Very good. Director McMahon, I believe you have a
Yes.
proposed amendment.
I do. I was going to move the recommendations in the report with some amendments. And I'm going to explain that the Growing Communities Fund was special one-time funding that was given to local governments by the province in March 2023. And at that time, they came up with this funding formula that, in my view, grossly underfunded the regional districts. So the District of Sechelt received $347 per capita. The town received $486 per capita. And the regional district received only $140 per capita, despite the fact that we operate a lot of the critical regional services with a lot of infrastructure attached to them. At that time, neither of the municipalities offered to contribute from their funding pots into shared regional services such as 911 or solid waste. And so for the town of Gibsons to insist that we can't spend the regional district share of this on anything that they don't participate in seems to me to be a really false logic. So what I'm going to move is that recommendations as shown on page 27, except that for in number 3, that the Gray Creek Intake and Water Treatment Plant project be funded from growing communities, and that the PRV for Advanced Optimization of Church Road project be funded also from growing communities. And I thought we could leave the SCADA with Community Works funds. And, right.
All right, thank you, Director McMahon. So we have an amendment. Do we have, sorry, we have a motion. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Yes, okay, I see a seconder. Do we have discussion on this motion? Director White?
Yeah, so obviously I need to speak on this again. The Growing Communities Fund has been, the province has been clear that it's for regional projects. And that's really, I mean, even at a local level here, it's easiest for us to justify equity in spending it regionally on some of the big solid waste projects that we know we already have and are coming over the next couple of years. That will assure equity. Everybody's in solid waste, including the town of Gibsons and the Sechelle Nation, who are both not in these projects in regional water. You know, it's a very awkward situation, but Growing Communities Fund is an awkward, I mean, the gas tax is an awkward situation too. I mean, that also goes to municipalities separately from the regional district. As Director Toth mentioned last meeting, we tend to just automatically channel it into critical asset management projects, where at the regional district it ends up being kind of held for these specific projects, or just held at the local area level, where it makes sense. I think in this case, the recommendation that it also be put to critical asset management, critical infrastructure. You know, I can assure, I think on behalf of both municipalities and the Sechelle Nation too, that grants that come to us get put into critical infrastructure for our taxpayers. It's not like we're sitting on, and it's often infrastructure that is used by the whole Sunshine Coast in some ways too. Yeah, I'm just kind of floored by because this is really targeting the two areas that don't happen to be in regional water here. When a grant that was intended for all members of the Sunshine Coast Regional District and regardless of whatever grants came to us separately, is being denied to those taxpayers. Especially when there is the opportunity, such an easy opportunity, such a straightforward opportunity to just put this money into solid waste. We know there are huge costs that are coming to us before 2028 when this deadline, the Growing Communities Fund deadline is coming up. It's just the best way to ensure equity at the regional district and honor what a regional district is supposed to be about.
Thank you, Director White. I'm going to go to Director Inkster.
Thanks, thanks, Chair. I'll speak for Sechelle at this table. The formula that was utilized that Director McMahon was referenced, and her critiques are fair. I went on record then, and I'll go on record now as being incredibly disappointed with Sechelle's per capita award. When you look at the name Growing Communities and you ask the board, what do they think is the biggest growing community on the Sunshine Coast? They would probably say Sechelle, closely followed by Gibsons, yet we receive less money per capita. incredibly disappointing. Asked the government why we did, why we received that, and their argument, they didn't even give us one. And they just said, that's what you're getting. Holy crow, that's what you're getting. Be happy. So I'm really disappointed about that. I also think that the arguments at this table, and I have to talk to my Seashelt representative some more about this off to the side, about our money that we have and expecting you to step forward with yours when we don't necessarily step up with what we could contribute at this table. So whether it's just that we have our own projects and our own concerns, which we do, like I said, Seashelt's a growing community, so we have a lot of infrastructure demands, and anybody that doesn't know that just because they drive through the downtown core should go up towards West Sechelt. I think Director Gabius is seeing that with her new gig, with what the demands are on Sechelt. So I think the arguments are fair in terms of that being put out this table, and I think we need to have further discussion. We need to make decisions at this table, as I've always said, but we need to have further discussions as to how we proceed forward fairly and what, many of us know as this grand bargain, which is the regional district model in British Columbia, and how we share properly our financial resources when we have so many needs throughout the region. And I'll continue to speak like that. It's we're working together. We're always working together. Sechelt at this table always wants to work together with regional district. I would just ask through you, Chair, to to staff what the weighted vote on this is here and what it is going forward, considering it has a financial effect. Thanks.
I'll look to our corporate officer to answer that question.
So the committee voting that will apply today is per your procedure bylaw, which are the participants in the service. So that's areas A, B, D, E, F, and Sechelt as on the agenda. And the voting at board is going to be contingent on what resolution gets passed. If it comes under administration and operation of a service, it would be a weighted vote for the service participants. When the regulatory bylaw comes forward for readings, when the rates are enshrined in the bylaw, the voting might be different, and it might apply to all directors. So there'll be two parts to this. One will be the adoption of the recommendation, and then the board will vote again on the implementation of it through the bylaw. So there's two opportunities to vote. And again, depending on what's decided here today, it could be a weighted vote of the participants on the one hand. It could also be a corporate vote for the entire board when the bylaw comes forward.
Follow-up question?
Thanks through you to the corporate officer. Could I have an understanding then of what that then means? I think it's one, in some cases it's 1, 1, and 1, and 1. But in another case, I believe it's 1 for 1, right? In another case, financial, it's Sechelt has a certain number of votes. And I think this is a really important issue. So I'm trying to determine where Sechelt will land on a number of these discussions and votes. I'm Chair. I'm prepared to wait. We can come back to it. I don't know how we vote then on it, but I'm prepared to wait. It seems like it's a little bit complicated. Thanks.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
if our corporate officer needs more time, no? Okay, very good. Thank you.
So is the question about the board voting on the bylaw? If it's a corporate vote, there's no weight to it. It'll just be all directors, one vote each. When we're voting on something to do with budgets, so the adoption of the financial plan or the approval of the rates, that would be the weighted vote. So the resolution would be the weighted vote. The readings for the bylaw would not be a weighted vote.
I trust our corporate officer will be able to guide us through the vote when
Correct.
that time comes. I'm going to look to Director Gebb. Oh. Do we have a scenario for the weighted vote on the adoption of the financials?
So Seashilt has 6 votes. That's 3 votes per director. Each rural area has 2 votes. SNGD has 1 vote. Gibson's has 3 votes.
Thank you. That's what I expected. Director Gabias, you have a question.
Oh, thank you, Chair. And as the person who requested that Community Works funds be applied to see how we can reduce the increase, I feel like I should speak to this. I can understand the frustrations from both municipalities and rural area directors. I do think using Community Works funds on water is probably one of the best ways we can use that money right now. And speaking for Area B, we have a pretty healthy pot. I'm sure there's a lot of projects that this could go towards in the future. But I feel like right now, if we're asking staff to, if our goal is to reduce the increase and also thinking of the bigger picture, the increase on taxes, I just feel like that's a good way to use those funds. And then the Growing Communities funds, as Director White was saying, can easily be applied to solid waste projects, which are truly regional. So I support the recommendation that staff put in front of us this morning. And I do think that that's the best way forward if the goal is to reduce the impact on our residents. So I will not be voting in favor of the amended motion.
Thank you. And I'm going to go back to Director McMahon.
Sorry, I was unprepared.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'll just ask a couple of questions here. So is it possible that we could, I don't want to muddy the issue too much, but are you ready? Okay, I'm going to defer.
Thank you. We have plenty that we can spend our gas tax funding on. One of the suggestions that was made by staff earlier was that we throw most of it at the Langdale well, which is a conversation we'll be having in budget round 2. We have absolutely no lack of projects to spend money on. However, in principle, if the municipalities had wanted to put their Growing Communities funds into the shared regional services like solid waste, they had that opportunity last year, and there was no suggestion that that should happen. So I am not in the least troubled with putting some of that money towards our #1 problem on the Sunshine Coast, which is water.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I can't remember the exact amount of money we have in the Growing Communities Fund and how much we would be using for water and how much would be left after we did this. I understand that the other services that we are proposing to fund from the various grants, we can change our mind later on in the year up until we do the final budget. The problem with this one is that we have to file the rates. So that's why we're doing this now, and it becomes a little, the discussion is now instead of later. So we don't know how much is coming out of each one of the grants that we have available to spread around. Curious if our CFO could tell me that information.
This was a question.
If we spend a chunk of it on this, how much would we have left to spend elsewhere?
Yeah, this was a question that I thought of earlier as well. Do we have a running tab on our grants and how they're being distributed?
Thank you, Chair. So that information was provided as part of the round one budget. I don't have it here. There was a lot of moving parts and a lot of deferrals. My recollection is that there was only one project that was approved at round one to be funded through the Community Works Fund, and that was for the Church Road well landscaping for $10,000. Cliff Gilker was deferred, and that was reduced down to 1.1 million. And then this particular item was also deferred. So essentially, whatever reconciliation you had there, you essentially have all of your growing or your community works funds. The same with the growing communities funds. And if I may, staff did also provide a report on the growing communities funds, just about what the intent what other regional districts. Also, staff met with the ministry about the funding formula, and it's still out there for us to try to workshop when they do these type of funding apportionments, how they allocate them to regional districts, especially those like ours that provide most of the regional services that the province acknowledged was not contemplated. So although it's meant to be regional, I don't think they really understood what each regional district, and this was just not unique to us, but to multiple regional districts as to who were the purveyors of the services. So the province acknowledges they don't really have a good understanding of that, of the details, although, yeah.
I wonder if our CFO could give us a dollar value as to the the growing community fund and how this particular motion would impact that, and what would be left over.
Chair, I would recommend we have a recess and revisit this later, because we'd have to go back and get that information. I'd have to pull the round two information and reconcile it.
Good. I move that we take a 10-minute recess, and we shall return at 10:15.
If they pull it from the blog.
Yeah, I have to go get them because there were some, we were going through the minutes and they weren't quite right. So I'll have to go get them.
Welcome back to the Committee of the Whole. Where we left off was we were looking for some clarity around what is in the budget of the Growing Communities Fund, and how this particular motion will impact the balance sheet on that. I look to my CFO for an answer to that.
Thank you, Chair. So for the Growing Communities Funds, sorry, I'm just doing a tally here of the Community Works Funds. So essentially, and I understand there is a question regarding a 911 commitment to round 2. So I don't have these. So again, we're working with fluid numbers just because I'd have to go back to the minutes, and there were a lot of changes towards the end of the committee, and I know we're dealing with those later today. But essentially at the start of round 1, we had 1.786 of uncommitted Growing Communities funds. So that's what you're, I just need to share my screen here, sorry. And again, this is just really high level. So essentially, you started with 1.786. If you approve the PRV in Grey Creek, you'd have an uncommitted of 687,390, and that's essentially pending whether or not we have anything for the 911. And I think that was in the neighborhood of 394 some odd thousand, based on my recollection. I don't know what you're giving me right now. So essentially, yes, this would work towards fully committing. And for your community works funds, I'll just share that as well. And again, there was substantive recommendations to refer projects to use funds through other services such as the community parks. The most significant was the Cliff Gilker park remediation, and option 2 of 1.1 million was referred, and there was several others that were including the ones for regional water. So again, just sharing my screen here. So essentially, you have, I'm just going to do math on the fly, or no, that's going to be minus. Yeah, so embedded in here, because there are a few items that were within in camera. So essentially, it's about $40,000 per electoral area for the SCADA system. So you'd still have substantive, and that's whether or not each area wants to contribute towards the SCADA. I think it does benefit regionally. So Area F, of course, has a significant commitment, and the recommendation out of round 2 was for us to fund the Keats Landing dock. And so the question would be whether or not Area F would want to contribute to this. So it's a fun game.
Thank you for that observation. It is kind of an interesting way to look at it. I do see that the Canada Works Fund is about $5 million more than the Growing Communities Fund. It's unfortunate that we did get about a quarter per capita of what one of the municipalities did receive. That would have made a big difference for us. I'm going to go to Director Lee, who has a question.
Thank you, Chair. My comments are around the mistake that the government made. I believe they didn't understand rural areas, especially a rural area like ours where we fund all of our big stuff as a federation. Things like parks and recreation centers and water and garbage. In most other areas, the municipalities do that for themselves, which doesn't happen in, there's a bunch of rural areas that that have municipalities like us, but we're definitely a minority, and they didn't consider us when they put the funding out. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood the figures, and these are approximate, and I did them way back before the formula wasn't finalized, but they're pretty close. That's just so, of order of magnitude, they're darn close. Seashell got around 346 per person. Gibson's got $486 per person. And the whole SCRD population of 32,191 got $69 per person. That's what happened. In my simple mind, and being on what I consider the wrong end of that stick, I see my taxpayers indirectly funding municipality services that they don't share in. They get no benefit out of. That's what, it was nothing to do with the regional district. I was looking at it from a provincial lens, saying, holy cow, what happened to my taxpayers? I have to speak up here. And I did. I took it to UBCM. It's the only time I spoke at UBCM was on this subject. And I must say the UBCM voted in favor of taking it to the province and asking that it doesn't happen again. And that's what our CAO was referring to, is we struck a working group so that going forward, the funding formula was fairer. Like, it's never 100% fair, but I mean, for this to be that far off is unbelievable. And I went a little further and said if we use the Growing Communities Fund that was given to the regional district for rural areas only, our share would go all the way up to $140 per person if we did that. I'm not proposing we do that. I kind of like, I will support it because it's on water. And the more water we got, the more we have to share. Who knows what infrastructure is going to fail between us on the Sunshine Coast? Who knows whose infrastructure is going to catch on fire, and we need to put all the water we can into there, whether it's a rural interface or multiple structure failure or pump failures, just like we've seen with our well right now. Those things are going to happen. So the more water we got available, the better it is for everybody. So I just want everybody to know what the figures were and the background to this. It seems like it happened years ago, but in fact, it happened at the beginning of this year. Anyways, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Lee, and thank you for speaking up at UBCM. It's really, it is unfortunate that this particular issue seems to be driving a wedge between us. And I know that we all want what is best for our tax base. And I'm going to go to Director White.
Indeed, this decision by the province, I appreciate that it's just the whole structure of regional districts is really challenging, and all regional districts are different, and it's really problematic to just kind of sweep a brush over all of them, and municipalities too, and say, here's a funding formula that's going to work for everybody, because it's impossible. So I get that it's hard for them, but yes, they did make a mistake. I'm not a genius in the financial department at the provincial government, so I can't figure out exactly what kind of nuances they should have figured out in order to, maybe it should be by budget, size of budget or something, but obviously this model doesn't work. for equity. And the right way to address that is to go to UBCM, as this board did, as our former chair did in speaking there. And hopefully this committee does make some progress. And Town of Gibson's will completely support that too. We're right behind making sure that all granting programs achieve equity for rural areas, especially because we have we partner with rural areas on the Sunshine Coast more than other municipalities in BC do. That said, I think the wrong way to go about this is to try to correct it at our level. There are funding inequities all over this province, all over the place between municipalities and regional districts. As I mentioned earlier, that includes even, I mean, it's even challenging how the Community Works Fund works, where that goes directly to municipalities and then directly to rural areas. And there's no way to really join those together for some of our critical regional infrastructure. It applies to roads, obviously, where we have to pay for our own. And there are so many other things where there are inequities. I don't think we should be trying to solve this inequity by leaving out 2 members of our region from this funding, and especially when we do have the opportunity to include everybody. If we spend this, we know there are significant costs in solid waste. When it comes to what Director Lee's saying about the possibility that we might be having to share water back and forth, we do have an agreement on that. We've had an agreement on sharing water back and forth where the other side pays for water being shared back and forth. There's that we're not in the service. So if Gibson's ever needs water from the SCRD, we pay for it, and we have paid for it significantly in the past. And same goes the other way. If SCRD needs water from Gibson's, the SCRD has paid for that in the past. So that's just more proof that it's not a regional function. What is a regional function is solid waste. So I feel like we can easily just not go down this road where we're kind of engaging in the historical bun fighting that's gone on here and gone for decades, whether it's north south. I mean, I'm 3rd generation on the Sunshine Coast of being involved in the SCRD, and I grew up actually in Area A, hearing at the dinner table every night that Area A was getting a raw deal from the rest of the Sunshine Coast, like every night. That's the conversation that I grew up in, and since then, watching history over the years, things devolve into municipalities against electoral areas here. They devolve into north versus south. They devolve into everyone versus Seashelt, everyone versus Gibson's. And, I think we're at as Director Inkster pointed out, this is a big decision because we're at the precipice of doing that again this term. I think we've worked really well as a full region. And we are at the precipice of changing direction on that and devolving into where this board often goes, where we have another easy option here to say, let's not take this out, this decision by the province, this mistake by the province. Let's not take it out on some of our members. Let's just spend it on solid waste.
Yeah,
where we're all
Director Lee.
members of that. It's a regional function.
Director White, I understand your passion around this, around solid waste. Now, I wonder if it would be appropriate for me to ask the municipalities to take some of their growing community funds and put it towards the solid waste question.
Great question. I've heard that come up here too. We're already paying for solid waste. That's the whole point. We're here to partner with everybody else. We pay significantly into solid waste. The district of Sechelt pays more than any other member here into solid waste. So why would electoral areas be asking us to pay double by putting our Growing Communities Fund? And this is the second time I've heard that.
All right.
Into solid waste or into
I have a
emergency
point of order,
services.
Chair.
Go ahead.
Point of order. We only speak after being recognized by the chair, please. Otherwise, we're going to have whoever yells loudest here.
Very good.
Thank you.
The chair asked me a question, so I was recognized by the chair.
I did. I asked him a question. Thank you for your input. So we have a motion on the floor. Are there any other questions to the motion? Could we get the motion reread to us?
That the water rates and regulations bylaw number 422 schedule be amended to increase the regional water service area user fees and metered usage fees by 4.9% and parcel taxes by 6.5% for an overall rate increase of 5.51%, and that the Grey Creek intake and water treatment plant project be proposed to be funded from Growing Communities Fund, and the pressure reducing valves PRV for advanced optimization of Church Road project be proposed to be funded from Growing Communities funds, and that the water supervisory control data acquisition SCADA upgrades project be funded from Community Works funds funded evenly between all areas A to F, and further that the draft 2025-2029 draft financial plan be amended accordingly.
Thank you. Director White.
Yeah, I have a procedural question. Considering, I think it's clear that the original recommendation, particularly members who aren't in the water service, wouldn't have a vote on it. But now that there's a motion touching on the Growing Communities Fund, which is for the entire region, for the entire regional district, does everybody have a vote? Because we never set, as staff has pointed out before, we never set a policy on how this money was going to be spent, which I think we should have done.
All right, thank you.
Before this stuff.
I'm going to ask our corporate officer and our CFO if they have any clarity around this issue. The Growing Communities Fund was given to the regional district, the rural areas of the regional district, I believe. Is that so? No? Okay, I'm looking for some clarity.
Two rules could apply if the motion was divided. So at committee, I'll remind everyone again, per the procedure bylaw, at committee, the participants in the service vote on the recommendation. So that would encompass Section 1, Section 2, 5, and 6. So that would be the water participants. If you wanted to divide the recommendation and pull out 3 and 4, that could be a vote of the entire committee. It would be one vote each because it speaks to a financial amendment, and that would be all directors voting on that.
Very good. And so can I make a motion to separate those? Go ahead.
That hasn't been how we have been handling the budget up until now. We have not been separating out recommendations according to the funding source. So that seems a little awkward.
I'll just add that the procedure bylaw provides that should a director wish to split the motion and vote upon it, then the board and committee may decide to do so. So that is an option available to the committee if there is a director that wishes to move division of the recommendation.
I think that this is a way that we can continue to move forward. Does anyone? Should I call? Okay, I can call the question as it is.
Oh, wait, sorry. The chair has the discretion to just split, right? So I think I heard the chair is doing that.
No, I haven't decided whether I'm going to do it. I'm looking around the table to see if there's another director that would wish to make that motion.
Is it a motion or can the chair, I thought the chair just has the discretion to split a motion.
Very good.
But it's a motion that has to be voted on?
Yeah, let's take a couple minutes. Let's just take a break.
We're going to take a couple of minutes. We'll be back in a moment. Sorry, welcome back again. We're looking at the motion on page 27 of the amended agenda with amendments, and I am going to call the question. I will call the question to, and this is voting all directors? No, sorry, this is voting. Okay, we're going to get the motion read back one more time.
Thank you, Chair. That the water rates and regulations bylaw number 422 Schedule B be amended to increase the regional water service area user fees and metered usage fees by 4.9% and parcel taxes by 6.5% for an overall rate increase of 5.51%, and that the Grey Creek Intake and Water Treatment Plant project be proposed to be funded from Growing Communities Fund, and the pressure reducing valves PRV for advanced optimization of Church Road project be proposed to be funded from Growing Communities funds, and that the water supervisory control data acquisition SCADA upgrades project be funded from Community Works funds, funded evenly between all areas A to F, and further that the draft 2025 to 2029 financial plan be amended accordingly.
I have a question from Director White.
I did not hear what was going on in the recess from here. So I didn't hear any clarity on whether the motion could be split or not. So, I mean, I'll just ask that the motion be split as
Very
suggested
good.
by the corporate officer.
I will split the motion. We will vote on recommendations 1, 2, 5, and 6, and that is voting A, B, D, E, F, and C shalt. Any questions on that motion? No, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Very good. That carries. Now, the further question is recommendations 3 and 4, and that is all directors at the table. Are there any questions on the motion? Is this a weighted vote, corporate officer? I think it's a simple,
Thank you for the question. There are no weighted votes at committee.
right,
So
this is a
it's one vote
simple
each.
one vote per director.
All directors, one vote each.
All directors, one vote each on the question of recommendations 3 and 4. Silas, Director
Yeah.
White, you have a question?
No problem. I just want to clarify that if this motion were to be defeated, we could then go back to the staff recommendation wording and pass that instead.
That is a
that
possibility that you could make a motion to that effect, yes. Director Gabias.
Yeah, we'll get through this. I just want to just to be sure that I'm getting this right. So the SCADA will be funded through Community Works funds, and that's between areas A and F, or did we change that? A to F? Okay, oh, I see. And then the 3 and 4 is Growing Communities funds. Okay. All right, got
Good.
this.
Excellent. Okay, so not seeing any other hands, I will call the question on recommendations 3 and 4. All in favor? That is, and opposed? I have one opposed. Very good, that motion carries. I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Item 4.3. Director Gabias, it's a residual. Item 4.3, the new Recycle BC agreement for recycling depots. Do I have thank you. We have a staff member to introduce this. Go ahead, Corporate
Sorry,
Officer.
Chair. Staff would like to request that both these recommendations on the regional water service be moved direct to board this afternoon. Could the committee make a motion to that effect?
I see a motion. I see a seconder. All in favor? Very good. That's done. Now I'm going to go to the staff report on And Manager Mark Soul is here to illuminate us on this. Thank you.
Yeah, so before you, you have a report for new agreements with Recycle BC. Currently, the SCRD has agreements with Recycle BC that enable us to collect residential packaging and paper at our recycling depots, which are managed through separate contracts. And the current Recycle BC agreement ends at the end of this year, and Recycle BC has come out with a new agreement, which also includes increased incentive payments to local governments. And so we anticipate that this will help reduce taxation related with our depot contracts. So staff are recommending that we approve signing these agreements, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Director McMahon.
Yes, this is good news. We always like to get better funding. And I know this is not directly on topic, but is there any progress being made on better options for ICI?
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question, through the chair. Yeah, my understanding is the province is still working on their investigation into ICI EPR program. And so their timeline is still 2028 for a policy decision. But we're anticipating to see engagement on this through the next year or two here.
Thank you for the answer.
Yes, I would like to move the recommendations on page 38.
I have a seconder for that. Any other questions? Yeah, Director Inkster, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad to see some, looks like in what we're hearing from municipalities, a change in this agreement, which will give more money to us so we don't have to tax our taxpayers so much. I think it speaks to the large surplus that is in certain bank accounts. So I look forward to further reductions in what we get asked for our taxpayers based on the amount that is sitting in provincial accounts. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see we have a motion on the floor with a seconder, and I don't see any other hands. I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Very good. That passes. Thank you, Director Soul. Manager, everybody's a director today. I'm going to move on to 4.4, which is call for resolutions to the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities. And we have Executive Coordinator Christine Armitage to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to request topics for AVICC resolutions. They must be submitted to AVICC by February 6th. So once topics have been identified, we'll bring back a report January 9th for the committee to review them again prior to the February 6th submission date. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
So the deadline for the board to come up with resolutions is January 9th? Am I correct in that? Okay, very good. I do have a particular resolution that I like some help with. I'm looking to approach the province to help create a new funding model for our firefighters to include some of the different agencies that we aid in our first response. Hydro, BC Hydro, BC Ambulance, ICBC, and I was hoping to craft a resolution that we could bring forward to AVICC. Go ahead, Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Procedurally, I think at this point, we sort of should come up with a bullet list of the topics that we'd like to discuss. And then as a committee, we can move that forward as a recommendation for motions to be drafted based on this topic list. We're not here right now to try and craft these on the fly. Director McMahon's really good at crafting motions on the fly, but I don't think we want to subject her to that today. So at the moment, I think we're just trying to compile a list that we can then vote on as a committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Toth, and I will look forward to hearing back from my fellow directors on what it is they believe should be brought forward to the AVICC in bullet form. Thank you, Ms. Armitage. We have a resolution, sorry, go ahead.
Speakers list?
We have a speakers list. Oh, look at that. I'm going to go to Director Inkster.
Thanks, Chair, for recognizing me. Yeah, we got a month and we should have some, this is one of those situations where we should just off to the side, have those discussions to see what we want to present. Obviously, the municipalities will do some of their own, specifically firefighters. That's one obviously that you would have to do at this table. It's interesting though, we keep asking the province to fund more and more of these services, but I guess they have stepped out of others. But there's only one taxpayer. I do know that there's a couple people at this table that are fairly good at doing resolutions. They can help you with that one. So check it off your list, but it's important, the firefighter issue. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Director Inkster. I'm going to go to Director Stanford.
Thank you, Chair. Slightly off topic, but we made some recommendations to AVICC last year. Those recommendations were then brought to UBCM, but they were never presented at the call for resolutions. And there was supposed to be a response back from UBCM on those resolutions. And we, as far as I know, haven't heard anything. So has anybody heard anything about those particular resolutions? And I'm thinking of the two resolutions about port support.
Well, I can't answer that question. I wonder if any of the directors can answer that question. Go ahead, Director Inkster.
Chair, I would just make a motion to write a letter and or make a communication to UBCM to ask where our motions went. Right? Yeah, I thought they were, I assumed they were presented at the UBCM. Yeah, so if I can make that motion, Chair, and seconded by, I'm assuming, Director Stanford, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the right way to go. It seems that from what I hear, that the issue lands with AVICC. Were they presented at AVICC?
They were presented at AVICC
But
to
not-
advance TBCM, but we ran out of time at the delegates' sessions to actually present them. So they were never voted on. UBCM said they would come, the executive said they would come back with a response to those requests.
And they have yet to come back with a response. Okay, so we need to craft a letter to UBCM.
So Chair, my motion stands.
Very good. I see a seconder for that motion. Go ahead, Director Lee. Director Lee?
Typically, UBCM publishes what they do with the motions on a paper on their website. Has anybody checked to see if they actually had answered on the website?
I'm going to turn to our corporate officer as I'm trying to herd these cats up here. Maybe you can answer some questions.
Thank you, Chair. So typically what happens is resolutions that go to AVICC must be endorsed there in order for them to be forwarded to UBCM for consideration. So that happens in September in the fall. And then we do receive the provincial response to our resolutions, depending. I'm not sure how they were or if they were endorsed, but that's something that we can easily check on and bring back to the board to provide whether or not those responses were received. But I don't think we'll need a letter to solicit that because that's just part of the process.
Okay, I'm going to turn to Director McMahon for some help on this.
Just to clarify, our resolution did not get to the floor because we ran out of time at the conference. There is a procedure that UBCM has for dealing with motions that didn't reach the floor, and at the moment, none of us, I think, can remember what it is. So perhaps we need to contact UBCM to find out where these poor abandoned motions are languishing.
Thank you. Staff are happy to look into that and report back to the board.
We do have motion on the floor to direct staff to do that, do we not?
Staff can do that.
Okay, so I guess we don't need a motion to do that. Is that correct, Corporate Officer?
That's correct. As part of the process, we would actually bring that back. And when we bring a report forward in January, depending on what topics you come up with today, also we would typically bring back and remind you of your historical resolutions of what has gone forward. So that will come back to you in an open meeting. But if the information is desired before that, staff can act on that. We don't need a recommendation.
Okay.
We can just go forward and look into it.
Right, our historical resolutions and their deposition, how they ended up.
Correct.
Thank you. And that is 4.4. Director McMahon, you have more statements about this?
Yes, we made a motion at a previous meeting to send an indignant letter about the fact that it is so difficult to do OCP renewal when we have no participation from MOTI. Perhaps we could do something in the way of a resolution around that. I was very concerned with the inaccuracies in the housing reports that we got, and that was because of the formula or paradigm. I'm looking for another word. Anyway, it was because of the way that the province structured the housing reports to be calculated is that they were grossly inadequate or inaccurate for the rural areas. And if our rural areas are that far off, I suspect a lot of the other rural areas in the province are in the same boat. And then the only other topic, the perennial favorite, is stormwater. We have done a motion on stormwater before, and I know that there have been stormwater motions from other regional districts. I'm not sure if we can come up with a new angle on an increasingly severe problem, but I think we should look at it and see if there's anything that we could do, or whether changes in ministries and responsibilities have in any way opened up any avenues for us to work more effectively on stormwater. That's my whole list.
Thank you, Director McMahon. I look forward to seeing this as a robust email chain between the directors, where we can compile our ideas, our resolutions, and perhaps hone them and work together to try to become a stronger voice to advocate for our communities. Director Lee, you have some insights on this subject?
Well, I think we were looking for some possible resolutions for AVIC, right? Just,
Yes.
I think that we should be doing something about abandoned and derelict boats before they sink. And I think the key to it is that we don't allow extended anchoring in our bays. So I'm pretty sure we could draft something up to the province to deal with that.
All right, I'm going to go to Director Inkster, but I do want to remind everyone that we're going to continue to move on, and we need to get together and talk about these resolutions. But go ahead, Director Inkster.
Okay, thanks, Chair, for recognizing me again. I look forward to that discussion, and Director Lee did remind me of a big issue that Pender Harbor's dealing with derelict boats, but also rafting of multiple boats. And I think this is a big discussion for us to get a good piece in there, and this is one really key thing where it'd be good to have the Shell involved with us on this issue because of the issues in Porpoise Bay. And it's a regional issue because Porpoise Bay, what happens there spreads into B and A and the Swia. and District of Seashell issues. So this is a really important piece that Director Lee has brought up for us to deal with, because there's lots happening in Porpoise Bay with derelict vessels and rafting. And we're not sure, in some cases, I'm not sure what's going, I would say to you and this board, I'm not sure what's going on there when I look out at some of the rafting that's going on. So it's an important issue if we can have that as part of one of our list of 4 or whatever. Thanks.
Yeah. I think you're looking at something that has impacts on public safety and environmental safety, and I think these are important issues for our community. Director McMahon.
Yeah, just a final comment. In some cases, we may want to look if there are other avenues that we want to take for advocacy, especially on issues that have been brought up repeatedly at UBCM without any solutions offered by the province. So as much as it is fun to submit these resolutions, and it's one of those things that they will always ask you, well, did you make a resolution? We have a lot of issues that don't seem to be moving forward, and perhaps we could explore other options. Thank you.
Very good. And I believe that we can move on to 4.5. Thank you. 4.5 is the Pender Harbor Transfer Station Site Operations Contract Extension, voting all directors. It appears on page 52 of our agenda. And Manager Sol, would you like to introduce this for us? Thank you.
Thank you. So before you, you have a report regarding an extension to our contract for site operations at the Pender Harbor Transfer Station. This is a critical contract that allows us to collect and consolidate waste at the transfer station. We've been happy with the service we've been receiving from Sailor Soils to date, and so we're recommending that we extend their contract for up to another 2 years. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Well, Director Gabias, you have a question?
Not a question, just happy to move the recommendations on page 52.
Very good. Do I see a seconder? I see a seconder for that. We have a question from Director Toth.
Not a question, Chair. Just a comment. This is, I think this is good news. Like, it is a local contractor that's doing this work. It's within the budget. It's sort of historically sort of trending average. So I think this is fantastic, and it's a great local success story. Thank you.
I concur. And I will call the question. All in favor? Very good, that passes. We've come to the point of our agenda where we are going to go in camera. So I move that the public be excluded from attendance of the meeting in accordance with section 91A, B, and K of the Community Charter, personal information. And I have a seconder for that. All in favor? Very good. So we're going to move in camera, and we shall return sometime before noon, I imagine. Welcome back to the open portion of Committee of the Whole meeting for November 28th. We are going to continue with our reports with item 6.1 on the agenda, Universal Water Metering Phase 3 Archaeological Monitoring Service Agreement. And I believe we have some staff to introduce this to the public. Director, or sorry, General Manager Rosenboom, will you be taking this?
Yes, I will. Thank you,
Thank
Chair. In front of you is a contract amendment award report for the archaeological monitoring for the installation of the water meters. This, as the board is aware, there are over 4,000 meters to be installed, and to narrow down the required archaeological effort for the installation of those meters, significant effort was put into ensuring that not all that the archaeological monitoring would only take place on sites where there was actually a potential of archaeological artifacts to be found. However, it turns out that we underestimated the amount of time required for archaeological monitoring, and there are some additional provincial requirements as part of our permit to do some more detailed analysis on some of the sites, on some sites. So those are listed in the report as well, that there is some additional work there required. So proposal is to increase the contract for archaeological monitoring to $255,000. And fortunately, we are still able to do that within the current project budget. So it would not require additional funding to award this contract for the archaeological monitoring. Staff are happy to answer any questions you might have.
I look to Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the report. I appreciate the fact that the increases can be covered off by some third-party and internal cost savings, as well as a little bit from the contingency. I'm going to move the recommendations as presented, but then I'm hoping I can just, for the public's information, hear briefly about what the third-party internal cost category saved. Thank you.
I see a seconder for that through Director Gabias, and I'm going to go to Director McMahon.
Director Toss question?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Savings related to the internal costs and third party, just for the public's information.
Okay. Do we have an answer for that, Director
Yes.
Rosenboom?
I'm happy to provide some clarity there. At the start of the project, we anticipated an amount of time that staff would spend on this project, and contracted services for example, dealing with invasive species. And in both sides, we have to spend, because of the good working relationship with our installation contractor Neptune, we're actually spending less time than we were anticipated on the project. And the cost associated with dealing of management of invasive species is also lower than expected. So the savings there can, to some degree, offset the increased cost for the archaeological monitoring.
Thank you, General Manager. Director McMahon, you have a question.
Yes, this is just a general curiosity question. We're digging a lot of holes, and any archaeological finds, of course, are not our finds. They are Seychelles Nation, I assume. But if there's a lot of confidentiality around this, I understand. But if something really amazing was found, would the public ever find out?
Thank you.
Go ahead, General Manager.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. Thank you for the question. That's always a discussion that we are having with Seashell Nation about what can we share in public and what not. And there have been artifacts found to date, but they are not, according to the nation, of that significance that it would be worthwhile to share them.
Thank you, General Manager. I don't see any other questions on this, so I will call the question on the recommendations. All in favor? Very good. That carries. Moving on to item 6.2, request for proposal, contract award for Seashell landfill contact water pond relocation construction. And I have Manager Sol to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. I will take
sorry,
that.
go ahead, GM Rosenbrum.
No problem. This contract, we have a project on the books to relocate the contact water pond at our Seashell landfill. Doing so would allow us to extend the landfill life with about 4 years from 2026 to 2020 to 2030. And we did a design with our engineering contractor, and we went out for construction award. And it turns out that all the bids were substantially higher than what we anticipated. That's in part because I think there was an underestimation of the cost associated for delivery of materials and services, as well as we increased some of the volumes of materials that we wanted to have a quote on to create some contingency in the contract itself, because otherwise, if there would be any unforeseen circumstances, we would immediately have to hold work and get back to the board for the contract amendment. So we included a more contingency allowance in the contract compared to the original design from the contractor. So as a result, there's an increase of the project budget recommended of $421,000 to be funded from landfill operating reserves, and a total contract value for the contract award to Saxon for the construction phase would then be $887,000 and $345.
Thank you, General Manager. I recognize that this may be a victim of ferry tax. A bit living on the Sunshine Coast is we have a higher cost of living than most other communities. Even Vancouver Island, prices are cheaper there. But I see this as a vital project that is going to buy us some time. 4 years added to the life of our landfill is no easy feat, and I'm looking forward to one of the other directors taking over here, Director McMahon.
Yes, okay, I'm guilty of a curiosity question here. But so this will buy us 4 years' time, and we are putting $900,000 into our closing fund every year. So how come we keep getting reports that we're underfunded for landfill closure?
Manager Sol?
Thank you for the question through the chair. That's just reflective of the cost of closure increasing over time. As we push it further and further away, we can expect costs to go up. Kicking that can down the road always results in a higher price usually, and so that's kind of accounting for that. Additionally, there are regulatory changes over time that make it more onerous and more costly to close the landfill. I've even just recently heard of a different closure method using AstroTurf, where we might be able to get a little bit more landfill life out of our space that would be allocated to soil related to closure, but obviously that comes with a price tag. So those closure costs are just reflective of the changing regulatory landscape on top of ever increasing costs for construction work and materials.
Thank you. Director Lee, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The contact water storage capacity to meet the 200-year design storm. Was this something we would have had to done even if it didn't extend the life of the landfill?
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question, through the chair. No, we wouldn't have, because we still have our existing contact water pond, but because we're going to the trouble of moving it and building a new one, we now have to meet the new requirements, and that's where the expanded size comes from.
And the new requirements are to what standard? How many years? 200 years for a 4-year project. That's excellent. I don't see any other questions about this. Is there a motion on the floor? Not yet. Director McMahon.
Yes, I would like to move the recommendations on page 56.
And I see a seconder? Yes, okay. Any other questions on this motion? No, seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Very good. I think that carries. Thank you. And I will move on to request for proposal, dock upgrades on the Hopkins Landing. And I'm going to look to GM Gagnon to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to be here today with this contract award. This is a very important dock to the community that's been closed for over a year now. Because of its importance, as you're aware, we do have a vacancy in our ports, but because of the importance of this particular dock, we did some prioritization and are very pleased that we were able to work with capital projects to help support moving this construction forward prior to the end of the very small window that we have now to get our in-water works completed. We costed this project based on a 2022 engineering report and cost estimate. And we designed the dock based on a number of items that we were trying to balance, mainly community desire and the connection to the dock, as well as a major consideration, which was the protection of the float and making sure that the current design of the dock actually, through the design, protects the float. And so changes to that design to be able to ensure the same protection actually might have resulted in a greater cost. So at the end of the day, here we are. We put it out to tender. It's a challenging environment right now. Plus, with a marine environment, we know that having a contingency is very important. And so in order to pay for the total cost of this now, including a small 10% contingency, we are looking for a budget lift of just over $75,000. And with that, I am willing to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Area F Director Stanford.
Just a comment. Thank you, Chair. I just really appreciate the effort that staff have gone to maintain this as a priority. I know that it's been quite a challenge given the staffing issues that are going on. And I'm looking forward to seeing this proceed, hopefully early in the new year, if everything falls into place. Thank you.
Director McMahon. She didn't move it.
Okay. My question was, my recollection is that this is being funded by gas tax, and so does that affect our balances in the gas tax for going into the budget, or what happens here? I'm a little unclear.
Go ahead, Steph.
Thank you, Chair. So the budget for the original project would have already been cooked into your finances from this current year's financial plan.
Yeah.
So the balance of Canada Works funds would have already included this prior to your 2025 budget deliberations. Right? And then this lift we're requesting come out of the reserve. Thank you.
Okay,
Very good.
gotcha.
I'm going to look to Director Stanford.
Thank you, Chair. I would like
My
to
fault, not reading.
move the recommendations as presented on page 48.
I see a seconder for that. Any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None? Okay, that carries. That brings us, I believe, to the end of our agenda. Seeing no communications and there's no new business, I will make a motion. I will look for a motion for adjournment. Seeing that, all in favor? Very good. And we are adjourned.